Are you serious? Are you serious? Don't cry for me, Argentina. They went dead broke. Argentina, don't cry for me, because I'm really praying and crying for you, because Argentina is broke, busted, and disgusted, and they're blaming the United States of America's hedge fund tycoons, vultures, for bringing this upon them. Well, according to BBC News, Argentina's blaming the U.S. mediators for debt default. Here's the situation. Argentina has blamed the United States for its debt default, calling the mediator that failed in the talks incompetent. Well, I don't think he was incompetent at all. I think they were corrupt. The cabinet chief said his country was considering opening proceedings at an international tribunal in The Hague after it was declared to be in technical default. The announcement came just hours after a last-minute talks in New York with a group of bondholders failed. The bondholders were demanding full payment of $1.3 billion. Now, Argentina says the bondholders are vultures using the South American country's debt problems to make a big profit. The investors are U.S. hedge funds that bought debt cheaply after Argentina's economic crisis in the years of 2001, 2002, which is just after 9/11. Okay? They also are known as holdouts because they did not sign up for a restructuring of the debt, which the majority of bondholders agreed to back in 2005 and 2010. Under the deal, investors agreed to settle for about 1/3 of what they were originally owed. Okay? However, hedge fund NML and Alurius Capital Management bought up large chunks of the remaining distressed debt at very low prices. And I can tell you what it was. 10%. 10 cents on the dollar they bought their debt. All right? And when it came, and they did this in 2001 and 2002. So in the year 2005, in a restructuring, they could have sold that debt for 33%. So they bought it for 10%, could have sold it for 33%, and would have made billions. But they held out. In 2010, restructuring was done again in Argentina. Once again, these American hedge fund operators could have sold for 33% to 40%, but they didn't. They held out. And now they're calling the note. Now they're saying we want paid in full, 100%. And of course, that has put the entire nation of Argentina in default. So what these hedge fund investors did was bought the debt of Argentina for 10% or 10 cents on the dollar, and they want to receive for that 100% of the debt. Is it illegal? No. Is it immoral? Yes. Especially when you are strangling, literally economically strangling like a python, an entire nation's economic position. You're breaking Argentina. Now, we already know Spain is broke. We already know Portugal is broke. We already know Greece is broke. We know that Italy's in bad shape. We know that several other nations of the world are broke, busted, disgusted, including the United States. But the United States isn't as bad as these other nations. We're talking these other nations are upside down, underwater by about 70% of their gross product. So U.S. hedge fund, Wall Street, did the same thing to the American people. Now look, I'm not a financial wizard. I do have guys like Fabian Calvo on as guests from time to time. And I do understand a little bit about economics. I can tell you this, that what they did to the American people was absolutely an abomination. And I put the blame on both former President George W. Bush and current President Barack Hussein Obama. Because what they did was this. They agreed in the late 2008, just after Obama was elected, they agreed that America was broke and their debt needed to be restructured. And the way they did it was They did bank bailouts of the tune of about $3.8 trillion went to the 6 major bank lenders in this nation. They broke a few banks, a few groups. They went ahead like A&G and I think Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They went ahead and just wrote them off. But the 6 big private banks, they gave them what was called TARP money. It was a bank bailout of the banks. Those banks turned right around and went ahead and foreclosed in the largest foreclosures in the history of this country in the years 2010, 2011, and 2012. What happened is this. So you went to the bank and you borrowed 100, let's just for conversation, let's just say this. You went to the bank and you borrowed $250,000, let's say, to buy a home. You lost your job because the economy was crashing. You could not pay your mortgage. You asked to restructure. The banks told you no. Why did the banks tell you no? They told you no because they had already gotten paid in full for every loan they ever loaned out, for every mortgage they held. They had received TARP money from the government because they were too big to fail and you were too small to get bailed out. So after the banks got their money, they're set. You wouldn't have to pay them a dime. They've got their money. But they didn't let you off the hook. They didn't even settle with you for 80% of what you owe. They wouldn't settle for 50%. They demanded payment in full. And if you couldn't pay it, they foreclosed and took your property. Now, they've already been paid because the American taxpayers paid them. And then they turned around and took the homes from the less fortunate, those who victims of circumstance, not because they weren't hardworking people, not because they weren't responsible people, but because they were caught in the web of the trap of a very filthy, corrupt system. So the banks got paid and then took the property from the people after demanding payment in full, and then turned around and resold these properties, but they held out. They didn't sell them right away. They didn't flip them right away, even though they got them for free. They waited till the market started to rise up, till all the foreclosures and bankruptcies were over, and as the market prices started to rise up, they then started putting those properties back out on the market for sale. And they doubled down, they tripled down on the U.S. consumer. Now this same concept they're applying to the Argentina, but much more simpler. They just bought their debt, what's called distressed assets, and they've waited, and now they've said, we want payment in full from your government. But for the government to pay them in full, it will break Argentina's back. But they don't care because they're still going to get their money as the New World Order's one world currency and one world global economy is coming. Remember what President Obama said in his speech last Tuesday, July 22nd, at some fundraiser in Seattle. He said the old order isn't holding, but we're not quite ready yet for the New World Order. But the governments of the world are going to bring about this New World Order. It is coming, he said. He didn't say it could come, it might happen. It is coming. He said it will be a global event. Now, that's either because of a major terror attack, a major war, or a major economic meltdown. Now, when this meltdown hits, if it does, and I think it will break the backs of all the little guys, but the big guys will have the cash. They will not be broken. And then there will be a consolidation. The dollar will crash. There will be a one world currency. But to manage a one world currency, you will then need a one world governance. And that'll probably take, I'd say, the changeover, what's called an economic reset, will probably take place first. It'll be the 7th time that the world will have changed hands on which empire's ruling the value of money. I mean, the Babylonian Empire did for a while. The Roman Empire did for a while. The Ottoman Empire. I believe it was the Persian Empire. Also, we know that, I don't know exact order, we know the British Empire, we know the American, the dollar right now. So you're getting ready to go into some type of new world currency, and there will be a reset. And all the governments of the world will eventually become one world government, one world currency. one world system, which would be the mark of the beast, and one world religion. So, I'm not crying. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I'm crying for you. We're in the last days.